On the way to marry his fiancée, the millionaire saw his ex at a bus stop, holding twins who looked exactly like him. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter's Stories, your own family story channel. May the Almighty pour His mighty grace upon you. May every woman be clothed with strength that never bends, honor that never fades, and love that heals generations. May your homes be guarded by peace, your hearts anchored in faith, and your lives lifted by blessings seen and unseen. May every silent tear be wiped away, every burden turned into victory, and every sacrifice rewarded with divine favor. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, 'I am with Mr. Peter.'" The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the bus stop bench still glistened wet under the morning sun. David Ashley adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with the perfectly knotted silk around his neck. Beside him, Sable Moreno scrolled through her phone, her diamond engagement ring catching the light with every swipe. "We're going to be late," she said softly without looking up. "The registry office closes at noon on Saturdays." David nodded, pulling the Mercedes back into traffic. This was it. 30 minutes from now, he'd sign the papers that would bind him to Sable legally, begin the official countdown to their wedding in 8 weeks. It was the right thing to do, the smart thing, the thing that saved both their families. That's when he saw her. The woman at the bus stop wore a charcoal blazer that looked expensive, her natural hair styled in elegant twists. She was laughing into her phone, gesturing with one hand, while 2 little girls played some kind of hand-clapping game beside her on the bench. The children wore matching purple backpacks, their movements synchronized in that eerie way twins often moved. David's foot slammed the brake. The car behind him honked. Sable lurched forward against her seatbelt. "David, what the—" But he couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Because the woman had turned slightly, and even from half a block away, even after all these years, he knew that profile. Knew the exact angle of her jaw, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the graceful line of her neck. Nova Winter. "David, you're stopping in the middle of the road," Sable said, her voice sharp now. He forced his foot to the gas pedal, forced the car forward, but his eyes stayed locked on the rearview mirror. Nova was still talking, animated, professional. One of the little girls tugged on her blazer, and Nova bent down, kissing the child's forehead before returning to her call. The girls went back to their game, slapping hands in an intricate pattern, giggling when one of them messed up the rhythm. They had to be 5 or 6 years old, maybe younger. David wasn't good at guessing children's ages. "Someone you know?" Sable asked. The lie came automatically. "No, thought I saw someone. Wrong person." Sable studied him for a moment, then returned to her phone. "We have 23 minutes. David drove on autopilot, his mind calculating despite himself. 7 years since he'd last seen Nova. 7 years since he'd accepted the promotion that required relocation to the East Coast, since he'd told her she wasn't part of his long-term plan, since he'd chosen ambition over the woman who'd made him believe in things like destiny and soulmates and forever. 7 years. Those girls couldn't be older than 6. He nearly rear-ended a taxi. "David!" Sable grabbed the dashboard. "What is wrong with you today?" "Nothing, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. His hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Because if those girls were 6 years old, if they were twins, if Nova had been 3 months pregnant when he left and never told him, because his exact words had been, "You're not part of my future." No, he was being crazy, paranoid. Nova had probably moved on, met someone else, built a whole life without him. She'd clearly done well for herself. That blazer alone probably cost more than the dress Sable wore. Nova looked successful, happy, completely transformed from the struggling junior analyst he'd left behind. The registry office appeared ahead, a bland municipal building with flags hanging limp in the humid air. David pulled into the parking lot, cut the engine, and sat there staring at his hands. Sable touched his shoulder. "Are you having second thoughts?" "Yes," he wanted to say. "I just saw a ghost, and she might be raising my children, and I can't breathe." "No," he said instead, "just nervous. Normal wedding jitters. Sable smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was too perceptive, too intelligent not to sense something was wrong, but she was also too kind to push. That was the problem with Sable. She was genuinely good, which made everything so much worse. They walked into the building together, signed the papers, listened to the clerk explain the mandatory 30-day waiting period before the marriage could be finalized. David heard himself answering questions, watched his hand form his signature, felt Sable's fingers intertwine with his as they walked back to the car. On the drive home, he saw a billboard. Massive, impossible to miss. Nova's face smiled down at him, professional and confident, beside bold text, Winter Consulting, building tomorrow's leaders. "That's actually a great firm," Sable commented. "They handled the restructuring for my father's biggest client last year. The owner is supposed to be brilliant. Some woman who started it from nothing." David couldn't speak. He just drove, following muscle memory, back to the penthouse he shared with Sable, the life he'd built, the future he'd carefully constructed. But all he could see were two little girls playing hand games at a bus stop, their movements perfectly synchronized, their faces turned away from him so he couldn't see if they had his eyes, his nose, his smile. That night, after Sable fell asleep, David stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello?" A child's voice, bright and curious. "Is this David Ashley?" His heart stopped. "Who is this?" "I'm Luna. I found your card. It's really shiny. Are you famous?" David's knees went weak. He sank into a chair. "Where did you find my card, Luna?" "At my school. On the ground. My teacher says you're important because you have a fancy title." "What's a chief executive officer?" "It means I run a company." "Luna, where are your parents?" "Mama's in the shower. She doesn't know I have her phone. I'm not supposed to use it without asking, but I wanted to know if you were real. The card looks like it's from a movie." David's voice came out strangled. "What's your last name, Luna?" "Winter. Luna Winter. My sister's name is Zora Winter. We're twins, but we don't look exactly the same. Zora has a freckle on her nose and I don't. We're 6. Well, we'll be 7 in 3 months. Mama says we're spring babies." The phone slipped from David's hand. He caught it, pressed it back to his ear. "Luna, I need you to tell me. I have to go. Mama's coming. Bye." The line went dead. David sat in the dark, staring at nothing, doing math he knew he shouldn't do. Luna said they'd be 7 in 3 months, which meant they were born in spring, which meant conception in summer. 7 years ago. Summer, 7 years ago, when he'd still been with Nova, when they'd spent long weekends at the beach house, when she'd whispered against his chest that she loved him, and he'd been too afraid to say it back. 3 months before he left her. The twins were his. Chapter 2. David didn't sleep. He sat in his home office, door closed, staring at the business card Luna had described. He'd had thousands printed 6 months ago for a charity gala, embossed gold lettering on thick black cardstock. He must have dropped one at the event, an event Nova had attended, because of course she had. Their worlds overlapped in these careful corporate circles, close enough to see each other's billboards, but far enough to never actually speak. At dawn, Sable knocked softly. "You've been in there all night." He opened the door. She stood in one of his old Oxford shirts, her hair messy from sleep, concern etched across her features. Beautiful, patient Sable, who deserved so much better than this. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Talk to me, David." But how could he? How could he explain that one phone call from a 6-year-old had demolished everything he thought he knew about his life? That he might have daughters he'd never met? That the woman he'd spent 7 years trying to forget had apparently built an empire while raising his children alone? "Wedding stress," he lied. "It'll pass." Sable studied him with those dark, knowing eyes. "My father called last night. He wants to announce the merger at our reception, make it official in front of everyone." Right. The merger. The carefully orchestrated business arrangement that had saved David's company 3 years ago when bankruptcy loomed. The deal sealed with an understanding. David would marry Sable within 5 years. Sable's father, Robert Moreno, was one of the most powerful corporate attorneys in the state. When David's company nearly collapsed under bad investments and market crashes, Robert had restructured everything, absorbed the debt, and rebuilt the business from ashes. The price had been clear from the beginning. "That's fine," David said. "Is it?" Sable stepped closer. "Because you look like you're about to run." "I'm not running. You ran once before. I know the story. Your sister told me about the girl you left behind when you moved here." David's jaw clenched. "That was different. That was a long time ago." 7 years, Sable said quietly. "She was pregnant, wasn't she? The woman at the bus stop yesterday, that's who you saw." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, David nodded. "I think so. I don't know for sure. But there were 2 little girls with her, twins." Sable's face went pale. "Did you know when you left her?" "No. God, no, I would never have—" He stopped. Would he? Would he have stayed if he'd known? Or would he have made the same choice, taken the same promotion, chosen his career over everything else? He wanted to believe he would have stayed, but he didn't trust himself enough to be certain. "What are you going to do?" Sable asked. "I don't know." She turned away, arms wrapped around herself. "My father saved your company, David. He gave you everything back. This wedding isn't just about us anymore." "I know. If you walk away, both our families lose everything. The merger fails, your company goes under. My father's reputation suffers because he backed you publicly." Her voice cracked. "And I lose you." David reached for her, but she stepped away. "Don't touch me right now," she whispered. "I need to think." She left him standing there, alone in the office with the sunrise bleeding through the windows and his phone burning a hole in his pocket. He wanted to call the number back, wanted to hear Luna's voice again, ask her questions, find out everything. Instead, he opened his laptop and searched Winter Consulting. The website was sleek, professional. Nova's face smiled from the About page, her bio outlining an impressive trajectory. Founded 6 years ago, grew from a solo operation to a team of 15 consultants, specialized in corporate restructuring and strategic planning, clients across 3 states, projected revenue in the millions. She'd done all of this while raising twins alone. The office phone rang, David's assistant, calling despite it being Saturday. "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you, but you have a visitor in the lobby. She says it's urgent. A Ms. Winter?" David's heart lurched into his throat. "Send her up." He straightened his tie, ran a hand through his hair, tried to calm his racing pulse. What would he say to her? What could he possibly say after 7 years? The elevator chimed, footsteps in the hallway. His office door opened. Nova Winter stood there, and she was nothing like the memory he'd carried. She wore a navy dress that screamed expensive, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, diamond studs in her ears. But her eyes, those eyes were exactly the same, dark and deep and currently burning with fury. "How did you find me?" she demanded. No greeting, no pleasantries. "I didn't. I mean, Luna called." "My daughter called you?" Nova's voice rose. "How did she get your number?" "She found my business card. At her school, I think. She was curious." Nova closed her eyes, took a breath. "She's 6. She doesn't understand privacy or boundaries. I'm sorry she bothered you." "She didn't bother me. Nova, I need to ask you." "No." Nova held up a hand. "You don't get to ask me anything. You don't get to show up after 7 years and demand answers." "Are they mine?" The words erupted from him. "Zora and Luna. Are they my daughters?" Nova's expression turned to stone. "What do you want, David? An apology tour? Closure? A chance to salve your guilty conscience?" "I want the truth." "The truth?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. The truth is, I was 3 months pregnant when you told me I wasn't part of your long-term plan. When you said the promotion to New York was more important than what we had. When you chose your career over me, without even asking if there might be a reason to stay. David felt the floor drop away beneath him. You didn't tell me. Why would I? You made it very clear where I ranked in your priorities. I wasn't going to trap you with a pregnancy when you'd already decided I was disposable. I never said you were disposable. You said, and I quote, "You're a great person, Nova, but you're not part of my future." Remember that? You said it standing in my apartment. Your bags already packed, your decision already made. So I let you go, and I built a life without you. Those girls at the bus stop, David said quietly. They're 6 years old. Almost 7. Are they mine? Nova met his eyes and he saw everything there. The pain, the anger, the years of struggle he'd never witnessed. Yes, they're yours, biologically. But you're not their father, David. You don't get to claim that title just because you donated DNA. The words hit him like physical blows. I didn't know. Would it have mattered? Would you really have stayed and given up that corner office, that 6-figure salary, that fast track to executive status? David wanted to say yes, wanted to believe he would have made a different choice, but they both knew the truth. He'd chosen himself. He'd always chosen himself. What do you want from me? Nova asked, her voice tired now. What do you possibly want after all this time? I want to know them. I want to meet them, be part of their lives. No. Nova's tone turned sharp as glass. You don't get to walk in and disrupt everything I've built. Zora and Luna have a good life. They're happy, stable, loved. You're a stranger to them. I'm their father. You're a sperm donor who happened to be in love with me 7 years ago. There's a difference. She moved toward the door. Stay away from us, David, I mean it. You made your choice then. Live with it now. Nova, please. I have a company to run and daughters to raise, alone, like I've done for nearly 7 years. We don't need you. She left without looking back, the door closing behind her with a soft click that sounded like a coffin lid. David stood in his empty office, surrounded by the trappings of the success he'd chosen over her, and realized he'd never felt more bankrupt in his life. Chapter 3. The medical records request arrived on Tuesday, delivered by courier to David's office. He stared at the letterhead, Winter Legal Services, and felt his stomach turn over. Luna Winter, age 6, has been diagnosed with hereditary angioedema type 3. Treatment requires comprehensive family medical history, particularly paternal lineage. As biological father, your cooperation in providing genetic background is legally requested. David's hands shook as he read the formal language, the clinical description of a condition he'd never heard of. He immediately called his assistant. Get me the best specialist in blood disorders. I don't care what it costs. 3 hours later, he sat across from Dr. Yemi Okonkwo, a hematologist who explained in careful terms what the condition meant. Not fatal, but serious. Required monitoring, medication, lifestyle adjustments. Luna would need quarterly checkups for the rest of her life. She'd inherited it from David's side, a rare genetic mutation that skipped generations. Do you have your family's medical records? Dr. Okonkwo asked. David thought of his father, currently in hospice care with stage 4 lung cancer. Thought of his grandmother, who died from a blood clot when David was 10, the pieces clicking together. I can get them, he said. The next day, he met Nova at the children's hospital. She sat in the waiting room, exhausted, her polished armor gone. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. She looked up when he entered, her expression carefully neutral. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. David sat 2 chairs away, maintaining distance. How is she? Stable. They're running tests. Nova's voice was flat, professional. The doctor needs your family medical history going back 3 generations, genetic disorders, blood conditions, anything relevant. I'll get everything. My father is at Westside Hospice. I can request his records today. Nova's head snapped up. Your father is dying? Lung cancer, stage 4. He has maybe 3 months. Something flickered across her face. Sympathy maybe, or just exhaustion. I'm sorry. They sat in silence, surrounded by the antiseptic smell of the hospital and the distant sounds of children crying. David wanted to ask about Zora, about how they were handling this, about whether Luna was scared. But Nova's body language screamed, don't touch, don't ask, don't pretend you have the right. A doctor emerged, a young woman with kind eyes. Miss Winter, Luna's asking for you. Nova stood, paused, looked at David. Do you want to meet her? Every cell in his body screamed yes. But he saw the fear in Nova's eyes, the way she held herself rigid, protecting what was hers. Not like this, he said. Not when she's sick and scared. That's not how I want her to remember meeting me. Relief washed over Nova's face. Thank you. She disappeared through the double doors. David sat in the waiting room for 4 more hours, even though no one asked him to stay. He scrolled through his phone, ordered his father's complete medical records, researched hereditary angioedema until his eyes burned. When Nova finally emerged, it was past midnight. She looked destroyed. She's sleeping, Nova said. They're keeping her overnight for observation. And Zora, with my neighbor, a woman who's been like a grandmother to them. Nova sank into a chair. I don't have family, David. My parents died when I was 19. It's just been me and the girls since they were born. The weight of that hit him. 7 years of doing everything alone. No help, no support, no one to call at midnight when a child spiked a fever or had nightmares. I'm getting my family medical records, David said. Everything you need. I'll have it to you by Friday. Thank you. Nova, I know you don't want me involved, but this condition, Luna's going to need this information her whole life. And if there are genetic things I don't know about yet, things that might affect Zora too. I know. Nova's voice cracked. I know you're right. I just don't know how to do this. How to let you in without everything falling apart. David wanted to reach for her hand, wanted to promise he'd be there, be present, be the father he should have been from the beginning. But promises were cheap when you'd already proven yourself unreliable. One step at a time, he said instead. Medical records first, then we figure out the rest. Nova nodded, too tired to argue. David's phone buzzed. A text from Sable. Where are you? You missed dinner with my parents. He'd completely forgotten. The pre-wedding dinner with Sable's family, an important event where they were supposed to finalize reception details. Guilt crashed through him. I have to go, he told Nova, but call me if anything changes, any time. I mean it. She didn't respond, just sat there in the fluorescent lighting, a woman who'd carried everything alone for so long she'd forgotten how to share the weight. David drove home, walked into the penthouse at 2 in the morning, found Sable awake on the couch. You were with her, she said. Not a question. Her daughter is in the hospital. Luna. She has a blood condition. They needed my family medical history. Sable's expression softened slightly. Is she okay? Stable. But she'll need treatment for the rest of her life. And you're going to be involved now. Another statement. Not a question. David sank onto the couch beside her. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know I can't pretend they don't exist. Sable was quiet for a long moment. Then, my mother asked me tonight if you were having an affair. I told her no. Was I lying? I'm not sleeping with Nova. But you're in love with her, still, after all these years. David didn't answer, which was answer enough. Sable stood, moved to the window. My father built his entire business strategy around our marriage, David. He merged his firm with yours because he believed we were a team. If you walk away now, it doesn't just hurt me. It destroys both our families. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what's at stake? She turned to face him. Your company only exists because my father saved it. You were drowning 3 years ago, and he threw you a lifeline. The price was this marriage. You agreed. We both agreed. I know what I agreed to. Then keep your agreement. Be a father to those girls if you have to. Send child support, provide medical care, whatever they need. But don't blow up our entire lives for a woman who didn't even tell you she was pregnant. The words stung because they held truth. Nova had chosen to raise the twins alone. She'd built a wall around herself and her daughters, and she didn't want David climbing it. So why was he trying so hard to get in? I need time to think, David said. Sable's laugh was bitter. We're getting married in 8 weeks, David. How much time do you need? He didn't have an answer. She left him sitting there in the dark, alone with his thoughts and his failures, and the knowledge that no matter what choice he made, someone he cared about would be destroyed. Chapter 4. The flashback hit David at unexpected moments. During conference calls, he'd suddenly remember the way Nova used to steal his coffee in the mornings, claiming hers never tasted as good. While reviewing contracts, he'd see her handwriting on old notes she'd left him. Good luck on the presentation. You're going to kill it. But the worst was the memory of the day he left. 7 years ago, standing in her small apartment with his bags already packed, his flight to New York booked, his new life waiting. Nova had been crying, begging him to reconsider, asking why he couldn't just delay the promotion for a few months, find a way to make the long distance work. He'd been so certain then, so absolutely sure that staying meant stagnation, that love was something you pursued after you'd secured success, not before. He'd had a speech prepared about timing and career trajectories and how sometimes the smart choice wasn't the easy choice. What he'd actually said was worse. You're a great person, Nova, but you're not part of my future. This opportunity requires total focus, and I can't be worried about maintaining a relationship while I'm building my career. You understand, right? She'd stopped crying, just looked at him with those devastating eyes and said, "Get out." He'd been relieved. No messy goodbye scene, no prolonged drama. He'd walked out, caught his flight, started his new position on Monday, and told himself he'd made the mature decision. He'd never called her again. Now, sitting in his office with Luna's medical records spread across his desk, David understood the full weight of what he'd done. Nova had been 3 months pregnant when he'd delivered that speech about her not being part of his future. She'd been carrying his daughters, and he'd told her she didn't matter enough to keep. No wonder she'd never told him. His assistant knocked. "Sir, your father's hospice nurse called. He's asking to see you." David drove to Westside Hospice, a depressing building that tried too hard to look cheerful with its pastel walls and artificial plants. His father lay in bed, shrunken and grey, oxygen tube in his nose. James Ashley had been a giant of a man once. 6'3", commanding presence, the kind of CEO who could silence a boardroom with a look. Cancer had reduced him to bones and papery skin. "David." His father's voice was a rasp. "Sit down." David pulled up a chair. They'd never been close, even before the illness. James Ashley had been more interested in quarterly reports than parent-teacher conferences, more likely to critique David's business decisions than ask about his life. "I got your medical records," David said. "Turns out you passed on a rare blood condition. To me, and to my daughter." His father's eyes widened. "You have a daughter?" "2 twins. They're 6 years old, almost 7. The girl you left when you moved here." It wasn't a question. His father had always been sharp, even dying. "Yes." James was quiet for a long moment, the oxygen machine hissing in the background. "I told you to leave her. Do you remember? When you got the promotion offer, I said a woman like that would hold you back. I said you needed to focus on your career first, relationships later." David did remember. His father's advice had validated his own fears, made the choice feel strategic rather than selfish. "You were wrong," David said. "I know." His father's hand trembled as he reached for a water glass. "I built an empire, David, gave you every advantage, every opportunity. And I'm dying alone in this place with nurses who forget my name. Your mother left me 15 years ago because I chose work over her. You barely visit, and now I find out I have grandchildren I'll never meet. It is my fault. I raised you to think like me, to believe success was the only thing that mattered, and look where it got us both." His father's eyes filled with tears. "I'm dying, and I can't name a single person who'll cry at my funeral because they loved me. Only people who'll cry because they lost a business connection." David felt something crack open in his chest. "Dad, do you love her, the mother of your children?" The question hung there, impossible to avoid. David thought about Nova in the hospital waiting room, exhausted and fierce and so completely alone. Thought about the life she'd built without him, the strength it must have taken to raise twins and start a business and keep going when he'd abandoned her. "Yes," he admitted. "I never stopped." "Then why are you sitting here? Why aren't you fighting for her?" "Because I'm engaged to someone else. Because there are business obligations, family expectations. Because Nova doesn't want me back." His father laughed, which turned into a coughing fit. When he recovered, he said, "You're making all the same mistakes I did, putting duty before love, business before family, and you'll end up exactly like me, successful and completely alone." "It's not that simple. It never is. But let me tell you what I've learned in this bed, watching my life drain away. None of it matters. The money, the power, the respect, it all disappears the second you take your last breath. The only thing that stays is the people you loved and who loved you back. That's the only legacy worth leaving." David's phone buzzed. A text from Nova. "Luna's being discharged tomorrow. Thank you for the medical records. The doctor said they're helpful. Just that. Professional, distant, no invitation to be more involved." "I'm getting married in 8 weeks," David said to his father, "to a woman whose family saved my company. Walking away from her destroys everything. And staying destroys you." His father closed his eyes. "I'm too tired to lecture you anymore. But I'll say this, I'd give every dollar I have, every achievement, every damn trophy on my office shelf for one more chance to choose differently. To tell your mother I loved her more than the company, to show up at your football games instead of board meetings, to build a life instead of just a legacy." David sat there until his father fell asleep, then drove home in silence, his father's words echoing in his head. The penthouse was empty. A note from Sable on the counter. "Staying at my parents' tonight. Need space to think." He didn't blame her. David opened his laptop, pulled up the photos his assistant had found, old pictures of him and Nova from 7 years ago. A younger version of himself smiled at the camera, arm around a radiant Nova at some company party. They looked happy, completely, stupidly happy in that way people are before life gets complicated. He'd thrown that away for a corner office. And now he had the office, the title, the success he'd sacrificed everything for. But sitting alone in his expensive penthouse, looking at pictures of the only woman he'd ever truly loved, David realized his father was right. He'd won everything and lost what mattered most. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Mr. Ashley?" A child's voice, different from Luna's, slightly deeper, more serious. "This is Zora, Luna's sister." David's heart stopped. "Zora, hi. Luna told me she called you. She's not supposed to use Mama's phone without asking, but she does it anyway." A pause. "Are you really our dad?" The question demolished him. "Yes, I am. Why didn't you ever come see us? How did you explain adult failures to a 6-year-old? How did you say, I chose my career over knowing you existed?" "I didn't know about you," David said carefully. "Your mama and I stopped being together before you were born. She didn't tell me she was going to have babies." "Why not? That's complicated, sweetheart." "Mama says grown-ups say things are complicated when they don't want to tell the truth." Zora sounded exactly like Nova, sharp, direct, no nonsense. David smiled despite himself. Your mama is very smart. I know, she built a whole company. She's the boss of 15 people. That's impressive. Are you going to come meet us for real? Not just talk on the phone? David's throat tightened. Do you want me to? Zora was quiet for a moment. Then, Luna does. She draws pictures of what she thinks daddies look like. None of them look like you, though. We looked you up on the computer. You're old. I'm 33. That's old. Mama's only 31. Fair point. I have to go. Mama's coming. But Mr. Ashley, if you're really our dad, you should probably start acting like it. Because Mama works really hard, and sometimes she cries at night when she thinks we're asleep, and I think she's lonely. The line went dead. David sat in the dark, holding his phone, feeling like he'd just been lectured by a 6-year-old and deserved every word. Zora was right. If he was their father, he needed to act like it. But what did that mean when the mother of his children had built a wall so high he couldn't see over it, and he was engaged to a woman whose family had saved him from bankruptcy with the understanding that he'd marry her? He didn't have an answer, but his father's words kept echoing. You'll end up exactly like me, successful and completely alone. David looked around his empty penthouse at the expensive furniture and the view of the city and the life he'd built on the foundation of abandoning the woman he loved. Maybe he was already there. Chapter 5. The newspaper article appeared 3 days later. Moreno-Ashley merger signals new era in corporate law. David read it over breakfast while Sable sat across from him, perfectly composed in a cream silk blouse. They'd been circling each other carefully since her mother's comment about affairs, both too afraid to push the conversation that needed to happen. My father wants to make the merger announcement at our wedding reception, Sable said, not looking up from her tablet. He's already drafted the press release. David set down his coffee. Sable, we need to talk about this. About what? Our wedding? The merger? Or the fact that you've been emotionally absent for 2 weeks? All of it. She finally met his eyes. I know the story, David. My sister told me everything 3 years ago when my father first proposed this arrangement. The woman you left behind to take the New York promotion. How you were supposedly heartbroken for months but threw yourself into work. How you built this company from nothing and nearly lost it all in the market crash. David hadn't known Sable's sister, Rebecca, had such detailed information about his past. What else did she tell you? That you were running from something. That you worked 18-hour days not because you loved it, but because you were trying to forget. Sable's voice was steady, but he could see the pain in her eyes. I thought I could be the person who made you stop running. I thought if I just loved you enough, was patient enough, you'd eventually choose me fully. Sable, let me finish. She stood, moved to the window. 3 years ago, when your company was drowning and my father offered to save it, I knew what he was asking. A marriage between our families, a merger sealed by a wedding. But David, I didn't have to agree. I'm 30 years old. I've had other offers, other relationships. I chose this because I wanted you. The guilt was crushing. I know. Do you? Do you understand that while you were making calculated business decisions, I was falling in love with you? That every dinner, every charity gala, every quiet morning like this, I wasn't playing a part. I was building what I thought was our future. David couldn't speak. He'd been so focused on his own internal crisis that he'd failed to see Sable as a full person with her own desires and heartbreak. Those girls are yours, Sable continued. I've accepted that. And their mother, Nova. She clearly still affects you in ways I never will. But my father saved your company, David. He absorbed millions in debt, restructured your entire operation, put his reputation on the line to vouch for you publicly. I know what he did. Then you understand what's at stake. She turned to face him. If you walk away from this marriage, my father's firm loses credibility. The merged company dissolves. Your business partner, my brother, pulls all his investments. Everything collapses. Your brother. David had almost forgotten that detail. Ricardo Moreno had invested heavily in David's company after the restructuring, become a key partner in several ventures. He's not just my brother, he's the CFO of our family business. If you humiliate me, you humiliate our entire family. Ricardo will make sure you lose everything. It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact. David's phone buzzed. Another text from Nova. Luna wants to thank you for helping with her medical stuff. Can we meet for coffee? Just the two of us. His heart rate spiked. Sable saw his expression. That's her, isn't it? She wants to meet for coffee, to talk about Luna's medical situation. And you're going to go? Yes. Sable's composure finally cracked. Do you love me at all, David? Even a little? The question deserved honesty. I care about you deeply. I respect you, admire you. You're one of the best people I know. But you don't love me. Not the way you deserve to be loved. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to compete for you with a woman you haven't seen in 7 years, but I need you to understand something. What? If you choose her, if you walk away from this marriage, you're not just choosing love over duty. You're choosing to destroy both our families, my father's business, your company, the jobs of hundreds of people who depend on this merger. Are you prepared to live with that? David thought about his employees, the people who'd stayed loyal through the company's near collapse. Thought about Sable's father, who'd risked his firm's reputation to save a stranger. Thought about his own father, dying alone because he'd made too many selfish choices. I don't know, he admitted. Then figure it out, because our wedding is in 6 weeks, and I won't stand at that altar wondering if you're wishing I was someone else. She left the room, shoulders straight, dignity intact. David sat alone with Nova's text glowing on his screen. He typed back, Tomorrow. The cafe on 7th Street. 10 a.m. Her response came immediately. See you there. The next morning, David arrived early. The cafe was quiet, tucked into a corner building with exposed brick and mismatched furniture. Nova walked in exactly at 10, wearing dark jeans and a burgundy sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked like the woman he'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sitting down across from him. Of course. How's Luna? Better. The medication is helping. Dr. Okonkwo says with proper management, she'll live a completely normal life. That's good. They ordered coffee, sat in awkward silence until it arrived. Finally, Nova spoke. Luna keeps asking about you. Both girls do, actually. Zora called you, didn't she? David nodded. She told me I should start acting like a father. A small smile. She's very direct. Like her mother. Nova's smile faded. I didn't plan this, David. I didn't want them to know you existed. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Why not? Because I didn't want them to be disappointed when you didn't care, when you chose your important life over being their father. The words hit like arrows. Is that really what you think of me? What else should I think? You left me without looking back, built an entire life in another city, never once checked if I was okay. Why would you suddenly care about 2 children you didn't know existed? Because they're mine, biologically. But being a father requires more than DNA, David. It requires showing up, being present, putting them first even when it's inconvenient. Nova's voice shook slightly. Can you honestly tell me you're ready to do that? Could he? David thought about his schedule, board meetings, investor calls, the merger announcement, wedding planning. Where did 2 6-year-old girls fit into that life? I want to try, he said. Trying isn't enough. They're not a project you can fail at and then move on. They're human beings who will remember if you disappoint them. So what do you want me to do? Just walk away, pretend they don't exist? I want you to be honest with yourself about what you're capable of giving. Because right now, you're engaged to another woman. You're running a company. You have a whole life that doesn't include us. And I won't let you disrupt my daughter's stability just so you can feel better about yourself. David leaned forward. What about you? What about me? Are you seeing anyone? Is there someone else in the girls' lives? Nova's laugh was bitter. I run a company and raise twins alone, David. When exactly would I have time to date? Besides, after you, I didn't really trust my judgment in men. The admission hung between them. I'm sorry, David said quietly, for how I left, for what I said to you, for all of it. Sorry doesn't change anything. Then what would? What would change things? Nova was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if anything can. We're different people now. You have your life, I have mine. Maybe the best we can do is figure out some kind of custody arrangement that works for the girls. Is that really what you want? Joint custody with a stranger? You are a stranger, to them and to me. The David I knew wouldn't have walked away from someone he loved for a job promotion. But you did. So clearly, I didn't know you as well as I thought. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. I have to go. Client emergency. She stood, gathering her bag. David stood too. Nova, wait. What? Can I see them? The girls, not as their father, just as, I don't know, a family friend. Whatever you're comfortable with. She studied him for a long moment. Why? So you can ease your guilt? So you can tell yourself you tried? Because they're a part of me I didn't know existed, and I want to know them, even if you never forgive me, even if they never know who I really am. I just want to see them. Something in her expression softened slightly. I'll think about it. She left. David sat back down, his coffee cold, his heart heavy with the weight of everything he'd lost and could never get back. Chapter 6. The school event was public, Nova had said. A spring festival where parents brought food and kids performed songs they'd learned in music class. David stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching families stream toward the building, feeling like an intruder at someone else's life. He spotted Nova immediately. She carried a large container of what looked like homemade cookies, one hand holding Zora's, the other holding Luna's. The girls wore matching yellow dresses with different colored cardigans, purple for Zora, pink for Luna. They were chattering excitedly, pulling Nova toward the entrance. David waited until they disappeared inside before following. The gymnasium was decorated with paper flowers and streamers. Long tables held potluck contributions. Parents mingled while children ran around shrieking with the particular chaos of 6-year-olds hopped up on sugar and excitement. David found a spot against the back wall, half hidden behind a support column. The music teacher called for attention. Kids filed onto a makeshift stage, organizing themselves into wobbly rows. David scanned the group until he found them, Zora and Luna, standing together in the second row, holding hands. They looked so small up there, so young and perfect and utterly unaware of the complicated adult drama swirling around their existence. The piano started. The children began singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, their voices sweet and mostly on key. Luna kept looking at her sister, checking to make sure they were singing the same words. Zora stood very straight, serious and focused. David's throat tightened. He'd missed 6 years of this. First words, first steps, first days of school, every milestone, every moment that made up their lives. He'd been absent for all of it. A woman next to him smiled. Which one's yours? The question froze him. I'm sorry? Your child. Which one are you here for? David couldn't answer. Couldn't claim them publicly when Nova had made it clear they weren't ready for him. Just supporting a friend's kids. The woman nodded and turned back to the performance. When the song ended, parents applauded. The children bowed, giggling and waving. Then they were dismissed to the refreshment tables, a stampede of tiny humans descending on cookies and juice boxes. Zora grabbed 2 cookies. Luna reached for the punch bowl and knocked it over. Red liquid splashed across the table, soaking the tablecloth and dripping onto the floor. Luna's eyes went wide with horror. A teacher rushed over with paper towels, trying to reassure Luna while cleaning up the mess. I didn't mean to. Luna's voice rose, panicked. It was an accident. Nova appeared, kneeling beside her daughter. "It's okay, baby. Accidents happen. But I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything. Look, we'll just clean it up." Zora stood nearby, holding her cookies, watching her sister with concern. "Want to share mine? You didn't get any yet." Luna nodded, sniffling. Zora handed her one cookie, and they moved away from the chaos, sitting together on a bench against the wall. David watched them comfort each other, the easy intimacy of siblings who'd only ever had each other and their mother. They were a complete unit, a family that had functioned perfectly fine without him for 6 years. What right did he have to disrupt that? Nova glanced up from the spill cleanup. Her eyes found his across the gymnasium. For a moment, she just stared. Then she looked at the girls, back at him, and shook her head slightly. "Stay away," the gesture said. David turned and left. In his car, he sat gripping the steering wheel, trying to control the emotions threatening to overwhelm him. He'd thought seeing them would help, would give him clarity. Instead, it just showed him exactly how far outside their lives he stood. His phone rang. Sable. "Where are you?" she asked. "You were supposed to meet with the wedding planner an hour ago." Shit. He'd completely forgotten. "I'm sorry. Something came up at work." "David, you've missed 3 appointments this week. The photographer, the caterer, now this. If you're not invested in this wedding, just tell me." "I'm invested." "Are you?" "Because it feels like you're somewhere else entirely." She was right. He was somewhere else, standing outside a life he could observe but never be part of. "I'll reschedule," he said. "I promise." "My mother is starting to ask questions. My father too. They're not stupid, David. They can see you're distracted." "I know. I'll handle it." "Will you? Because in 5 weeks, we're standing in front of 300 people making vows, and I need to know you're going to show up, actually show up, not just physically be there." "Sable, I love you." Her voice broke. "I know you don't feel the same way, but I need you to know that. I'm not doing this for my father's business or for the merger. I'm marrying you because I want to build a life with you, and it's killing me that you can't give me the same." David closed his eyes. "I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and make a choice, her or me, the past or the future, because this limbo is destroying us both." She hung up. David sat in the parking lot while families packed up around him, children being loaded into car seats, parents chatting about weekend plans. Normal people living normal lives, uncomplicated by impossible choices and the weight of mistakes made years ago. His phone buzzed with an email from his lawyer. Subject: Final merger documents. He opened it, scanned the dense legal language. The merger between his company and the Moreno family firm was complete pending one final condition: his marriage to Sable Moreno within the next 8 weeks. Everything was riding on this: his company, his employees' jobs, his business partners' investments. The careful structure Robert Moreno had built to save David from bankruptcy, and all he could think about was 2 little girls sharing cookies on a bench, taking care of each other because no one else ever had. That night, David went to see his father again. James Ashley looked worse, the oxygen mask now covering his entire face. The nurse said he'd taken a turn, maybe days left, maybe weeks. "Dad," David said, taking his father's papery hand, "I don't know what to do." His father pulled down the mask. "Tell me." So David did. Told him everything: the twins, Luna's medical condition, Nova's wall of ice, Sable's love and his inability to return it, the merger hanging in the balance. When he finished, his father was quiet for so long, David thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, "What do those girls call you?" "Nothing. They don't know I'm their father." "And the woman, Nova, what does she want from you?" "Nothing. She wants me to stay away." "So you've got 2 daughters who don't know you exist, a woman who doesn't want you, and you're considering destroying your entire life to chase that." Put that way, it sounded insane. "They're my children," David said. "Biology doesn't make you a father. Showing up does. And from what you've told me, that woman's been showing up alone for 6 years. She doesn't need you. Maybe not, but I need them. His father sighed. You're making the same mistake I made, thinking you can fix the past by blowing up the present. You can't get those 6 years back, David, no matter what you do now. So I should just marry Sable? Ignore that I have daughters? I'm saying you need to accept what you lost and work with what you have. Be there for those girls financially, medically, but don't destroy good people's lives trying to play savior to a family that's doing fine without you. David pulled his hand away. Is that what you told yourself when Mom left? That she was doing fine without you, so you didn't need to fight for her? His father's eyes hardened. Your mother left because I couldn't give her what she needed. Neither can you give this woman what she needs. 7 years too late, son. Then what do I do? You honor your commitments. You marry the woman who loves you. You support your daughters from a distance. You build the life you chose. David stood. That's not good enough. It's all you've got. He left his father's room feeling more lost than when he'd arrived. In the parking lot, he pulled up his phone, scrolled to Nova's contact, started typing a message. Can we talk? Really talk? Not about the girls, about us. He stared at the words for a full minute before deleting them. What was there to say? Nova had made her position clear. She'd built a life without him and didn't want him disrupting it. His father was right. He couldn't get the past back. But as he drove home, passing the street where he'd first seen them at the bus stop, David couldn't shake the image of Zora and Luna sharing cookies, taking care of each other, having no idea their father was watching from the shadows. He'd made a choice 7 years ago, chosen career over love, ambition over connection. Now he was facing the consequences. The question was whether he'd have the courage to choose differently this time. Chapter 7. The confrontation came on a Tuesday evening, unexpected and brutal. David arrived home to find Sable's entire family in his living room. Her father Robert, her mother Isabella, and her brother Ricardo. All of them looked like they were ready for war. What's going on? David asked. Robert Moreno stood. He was a large man, intimidating even in casual clothes, with silver hair and eyes that could dissect a contract at 20 paces. We need to discuss the elephant in the room. David's stomach dropped. What elephant? Your other family, Isabella said sharply. The woman and her twin daughters. Sable sat on the couch, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She'd told them. Sit down, David, Robert said. It wasn't a request. David sat. Ricardo leaned forward, his expensive suit straining across his shoulders. We did some digging. Nova Winter, owner of Winter Consulting. Twins Zora and Luna Winter, age 6. Born 7 months after you relocated here from your previous position. I didn't know about them, David said. We don't care, Isabella snapped. What we care about is that you've been sneaking around to see them while engaged to our daughter. I went to one school event, that's it. One that we know about, Ricardo said. But you've been meeting with their mother privately. Hospital visits, coffee shops. Should I continue? They'd been tracking him. The realization was both infuriating and humiliating. Those meetings were about medical issues, David said. Luna has a genetic condition. They needed my family history. And you couldn't handle that through lawyers? Robert's voice was steel. You had to meet the woman personally, repeatedly? Sable finally spoke. Just tell them the truth, David. Tell them you're still in love with her. The room went silent. David met her eyes, saw the pain there, the betrayal, the desperate hope that he'd deny it. He couldn't. I care about Nova, he said carefully, but that doesn't change my commitment to this marriage. Doesn't it? Robert stood, pacing. Because 3 years ago, when your company was hemorrhaging money and facing bankruptcy, I made you a promise. I would save your business, absorb your debts, restructure everything. In exchange, you would marry my daughter and merge our families properly. I remember the agreement. Do you? Because that agreement wasn't just about business, David. It was about trust, about family. My daughter gave you her heart, and you gave me your word. Now I'm hearing that word might not mean anything. Ricardo added, "We've invested millions in your company based on this merger. Our family's reputation is tied to yours. If you walk away—" "I'm not walking away," David interrupted. "Then what are you doing?" Isabella demanded. "Because from where we sit, you're having an emotional affair with your ex-girlfriend while planning to marry our daughter." "It's not an affair. We don't care about the physical details," Robert cut in. "What matters is where your heart is, and it's clearly not with Sable." Sable stood abruptly. "Can everyone please leave? I need to talk to David alone." Her family exchanged looks, but eventually filed out, Robert pausing at the door. "You have until the weekend to make a decision. Either you're all in on this marriage, or we pull everything. The merger dissolves, our investments are withdrawn, and you can try to rebuild your company from the ashes, again." The door closed behind them. David and Sable stood in the sudden silence, the weight of ultimatums and unspoken truths crushing the air between them. "I didn't tell them to ambush you," Sable said quietly. "My mother figured it out. She has investigators for her own cases, and she got curious. I wasn't trying to hide anything. Weren't you? You've been disappearing for hours, making excuses, missing appointments. What did you think we'd assume? That I was dealing with a complicated situation. By yourself, without talking to me, without including me in any of it." Sable's voice shook. "I'm supposed to be your partner, David, your future wife, but you shut me out completely." She was right. He'd compartmentalized everything, kept his world separate, tried to manage the impossible without letting anyone see how badly he was drowning. "I'm sorry," he said. "Stop saying that. Stop apologizing and actually change something." Tears streamed down her face now. "Do you know what it's like loving someone who can't love you back? Watching you go through the motions of our life together while your heart is somewhere else entirely." "Sable, I'm not finished. You want to know the worst part? I keep hoping you'll wake up one day and suddenly see me, really see me, not as the solution to your business problems or the woman who's convenient, but as someone worth loving, someone worth choosing. You are worth choosing. Then why don't you choose me?" She stepped closer, vulnerable and raw. "I know I wasn't your first choice. I know you agreed to this marriage for practical reasons. But I thought maybe, over time, you could fall in love with me. Was I delusional?" David wanted to lie, wanted to tell her what she needed to hear, that he could grow to love her properly, that time would fix everything, but she deserved better than lies. "I don't know," he admitted. "I care about you deeply. I respect and admire you. But when I'm honest with myself, I don't know if I can give you the kind of love you deserve." Sable closed her eyes. "Thank you for finally being honest. I'm sorry. If you say sorry one more time, I'm going to scream." She wiped her tears, pulling herself together. "I need you to understand something. My father doesn't make empty threats. If you walk away from this marriage, he will destroy you. Not out of revenge, he's not that petty, but because you'll have proven yourself unreliable, and unreliable people don't deserve his help." "I know. And Ricardo, my brother, he's not just your business partner. He's the one who brought in most of our major clients after the restructuring. If he pulls out, your company loses 60% of its revenue." David hadn't known that specific number. The reality was somehow worse than he'd imagined. "So here's what happens if you choose her," Sable continued, her voice steady now. "Your company folds, your employees lose their jobs. Every professional relationship you've built gets destroyed because word will spread that you broke an engagement to chase an old girlfriend. Your reputation in this city will be finished. And if I choose you, we get married. We build a life together. You support your daughters financially and medically, but from a distance. Eventually, maybe, you learn to be content if not happy." She paused. Or you resent me forever for being the woman you settled for. They stood there in the wreckage of their almost future, both knowing the impossibility of their situation. I need to think, David said. You have 4 weeks until the wedding. Think fast. She gathered her bag, her coat, moved toward the door. Stopped. For what it's worth, I do love you. Not the idea of you. Not what you represent for my family. You. The man who works too hard and drinks terrible coffee and has a weird obsession with organizing his closet by color. I love you, David, and I wish that was enough. She left. David stood alone in his expensive penthouse, surrounded by everything his choices had bought him, and felt completely bankrupt. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Luna. Mama doesn't know I have her phone again. I wanted to tell you we're learning about families at school. Teacher says families are the people who love you no matter what. Do you love us? The question destroyed him. He didn't know how to answer a 6-year-old's text about love when he'd spent his entire adult life running from it. Before he could type a response, another message. Mama's coming. Bye. David sat on the couch, phone in hand, and did something he hadn't done in years. He cried. Not the dignified tears of a man facing hard choices. The ugly, desperate sobs of someone who'd finally realized what he'd lost and would never get back. His father's words echoed, You can't get those 6 years back, David, no matter what you do now. But maybe he could build something new, something honest, even if it cost him everything. The question was whether he was brave enough to try. Chapter 8. The engagement party was exactly as lavish as David expected. Sable's family didn't do anything halfway. The Moreno estate sprawled across 10 acres of manicured lawns and careful landscaping. White tents dotted the property, filled with 200 guests in cocktail attire, sipping champagne and eating hors d'oeuvres that cost more per bite than most people's dinners. David wore a custom tuxedo and felt like he was attending his own funeral. Sable looked stunning in a champagne-colored dress that caught the light with every movement. She smiled and laughed and played the role of happy bride-to-be with an expertise that broke his heart. Because he knew it wasn't entirely an act. She wanted this, wanted him, wanted the future they were supposedly building, and he was about to destroy it. There's the man of the hour, Robert Moreno's voice boomed as he approached with a cluster of business associates. David, you know Marcus Chen from Titan Investments. David shook hands, made small talk, nodded along to conversations about market trends and strategic partnerships. His mind was elsewhere. Across the lawn, near the rose garden, he spotted a familiar figure. Nova. She wore a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves, her hair styled in an elegant updo. She was talking to someone David didn't recognize, laughing at something they'd said, completely at ease in this world of wealth and power, because she belonged here now. She'd earned it. Their eyes met across the party. Nova's smile faltered. She said something to her companion and moved away, disappearing into the crowd. David excused himself from Robert's group and followed. He found her near the koi pond, standing alone, arms wrapped around herself despite the warm evening. You're here, he said. Business circles overlap, Nova replied without turning. Robert Moreno's firm uses my consulting services occasionally. I was invited professionally. I didn't know this was your engagement party until I arrived. You could have left. I could have. But I'm not going to let you control where I go or what events I attend. I built my reputation in this city. I'm not hiding from you. Fair enough. They stood in awkward silence, listening to the distant sound of music and laughter from the party. The girls ask about you, Nova finally said. Luna especially. She wants to know when she can meet you properly, not just talk on the phone. David's chest tightened. What did you tell her? That you're very busy, that grown-up situations are complicated. Nova turned to face him. I didn't tell her you're getting married in 4 weeks. Nova, don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't. Her voice was hard. You made your choice 7 years ago, and you're making it again now. You're choosing this life, this woman, this future, that's fine. It's your right. But don't come to me looking for absolution or understanding. I don't want absolution. Then what do you want? The question hung there, impossible and essential. Before David could answer, Isabella Moreno's voice rang out over the sound system. Can I have everyone's attention, please? The crowd quieted, turning toward the main tent where Isabella stood on a small platform, microphone in hand. Thank you all for joining us this evening to celebrate the engagement of my daughter Sable and her fiancé David Ashley. We are thrilled to be welcoming David into our family officially. Applause. Sable joined her mother on the platform, smiling graciously. And now, Isabella continued, I'm delighted to announce that we've set the official wedding date. 4 weeks from today, Saturday the 28th, Sable and David will be married at St. Catherine's Cathedral, with the reception here at our home. More applause. David felt his throat close. Isabella handed the microphone to Robert, who launched into a speech about family and legacy and the importance of the Moreno-Ashley merger to the business community. David couldn't hear it. The world had narrowed to the sound of his own heartbeat and Nova's presence beside him. 4 weeks, Nova whispered. You didn't tell me it was so soon. I didn't know they were announcing it tonight. Congratulations. The word was bitter. You're getting everything you wanted. Success, stability, a family that actually wants you. Nova, please, I should go. This was a mistake. She started to walk away. David grabbed her wrist. Wait. She froze, looked down at his hand on her skin, then back up at his face. Let go of me. Not until you hear what I have to say. There's nothing to say. You're marrying her. End of story. I don't love her. Nova's laugh was sharp and painful. Then you're even more of a coward than I thought, marrying someone you don't love to avoid dealing with real feelings. I love you. The words came out raw, desperate. I never stopped loving you. Not in 7 years, not for a single day. Then what are you doing? Tears welled in her eyes. Why are you standing here at your engagement party confessing feelings you have no intention of acting on? Because I don't know if I can go through with it. The wedding, the marriage, the life everyone expects me to have. I look at Sable and I see someone good and kind who deserves someone who can love her fully, and I can't be that person. So leave, walk away. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You're just too scared to do it. She was right. He was terrified. Terrified of losing everything he'd built. Terrified of disappointing people who'd invested in him. Terrified of ending up like his father, alone and filled with regrets. On the platform, Robert was finishing his speech. And now I'd like to ask the happy couple to join me for a toast. David, Sable, where are you? Heads turned, searching. Someone spotted David by the koi pond, with Nova. Whispers rippled through the crowd. David dropped Nova's wrist. I have to go, play your part. Nova's voice was ice. Just don't expect me to wait around for you to grow a spine. My daughters and I are leaving the city. I accepted a job in Seattle. We move in 3 weeks. The words hit him like a physical blow. What? I got the offer a week ago. Triple my salary, equity stake in a national firm, fresh start for the girls. I've been thinking about it for a while, but after seeing you tonight, I made my decision. We're done with this city, with you, with hoping for something that's never going to happen. Nova, please don't. David! Sable's voice called from the tent. We need you for the toast. Nova stepped back. Go to your fiancé, toast your future, and let me have mine. She walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the party lights. David stood frozen for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to the platform, climbed the steps, took the champagne flute someone handed him. Sable's hand found his. Her fingers were cold. Robert raised his glass. To David and Sable. May their union be blessed with love, prosperity, and the strength to weather any storm. To David and Sable, the crowd echoed. David raised his glass, drank the champagne, tasted nothing. Later that night, after the party ended and the guests departed, David sat in his car in the empty parking lot of his office building. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to his father's hospice number. The nurse answered. "Mr. Ashley, I'm glad you called. Your father has been asking for you. He's not doing well. If you want to see him, you should come soon." David drove to the hospice, found his father awake, lucid, the oxygen mask covering most of his face. "Hey, Dad," David said, sitting in the chair beside the bed. James pulled down the mask. "You look like hell." "Feel like it too." "The engagement party was tonight, wasn't it?" David nodded. "Did you go through with it? Announce the wedding date?" "Sable's mother announced it, 4 weeks from now." His father studied him. And I don't know if I can do it." David's voice broke. "Nova's leaving, moving to Seattle with the girls. If I marry Sable, I lose them forever." "You already lost them, 7 years ago when you walked away." "So that's it? I just accept that I'm a terrible person and move on?" "No." His father's voice was surprisingly strong. "You accept that you made a choice back then that had consequences, and now you're facing another choice with its own consequences. There's no version of this where everyone wins." "What should I do?" "I can't tell you that. Only you know what you can live with." James coughed, wincing. "But I'll tell you what I learned too late. Money and power and success. They're cold comfort when you're dying alone. The only thing that matters in the end is the people you loved and who loved you back. Sable's family saved my company. And you've given them 3 years of loyalty and partnership. That's not nothing, but it's also not a reason to marry someone you don't love." David sat in the quiet room, listening to the beep of monitors and the hiss of oxygen. "I'm scared," he admitted, "of losing everything, of making the wrong choice again." "You're human. Fear is normal. But David, let me ask you this. 30 years from now, when you're lying in a bed like this one, what will you regret more? Breaking an engagement and losing a company, or marrying the wrong woman and never knowing your daughters?" The question echoed in the sterile room. His father reached out a trembling hand. David took it. "I don't have much time left," James said. "Days, maybe. Before I go, I want to meet them, my granddaughters. Can you make that happen? I don't know if Nova will allow it. Ask her. Tell her it's a dying man's last wish. Tell her whatever you have to, but let me see them before I go." David nodded, throat tight with emotion. He left the hospice and drove aimlessly through the city, past the bus stop where he'd first seen them, past Winter Consulting's office building, past the school where Zora and Luna spent their days learning and growing without him. Finally, he pulled over and sent Nova a text. "My father is dying. He wants to meet Zora and Luna before he goes. I know I have no right to ask, but please consider it. Not for me, for them. They deserve to know they had a grandfather who wanted to meet them." He didn't expect a response, not at 2 in the morning, but his phone buzzed. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the park on Riverside, 15 minutes. That's all he gets. And David, this doesn't change anything between us. I'm still leaving." David read the message 3 times. Tomorrow, he would introduce his dying father to the grandchildren he'd never known existed. And in 4 weeks, he was supposed to marry a woman he didn't love. Something had to break. Chapter 9. The park was empty except for a few joggers and one woman pushing a stroller. David arrived early, standing near the playground equipment, watching the entrance. His father sat in a wheelchair, a hospice nurse beside him. James looked terrible. Gaunt, pale, struggling to breathe even with the portable oxygen. But his eyes were alert, anxious, scanning the park for any sign of the granddaughters he'd never met. At exactly 10 a.m., Nova appeared. Zora and Luna walked beside her, dressed in jeans and matching jackets, one red, one blue. They looked curious, but cautious, holding their mother's hands. David's heart seized at the sight of them, his daughters, walking toward him, real and solid, and completely unaware of how much this moment meant. Nova stopped a few feet away. "Girls, this is a friend of mine," Mr. Ashley and his father. Zora studied David with serious eyes. You're the man from the business card. Yes, that's me. Luna looked at James in the wheelchair. Why does the old man have tubes in his nose? Luna, Nova said gently, that's not polite. It's fine, James said, his voice raspy. I'm sick. The tubes help me breathe. Are you going to die? Luna asked with the blunt honesty of 6-year-olds. Luna! Nova looked mortified, but James smiled. Yes, sweetie. Soon. That's sad, Zora said. Death is when you stop being alive. We learned about it in school. What did you learn? James asked. That everyone dies eventually, but before you do, you're supposed to do important things and love people. Your teacher is very smart. Did you do important things? Zora shrugged. We're only 6. We haven't had time for important things yet. James laughed, which turned into coughing. The nurse adjusted his oxygen. When he recovered, he said, Can I tell you girls a secret? They nodded, stepping closer. The most important thing I ever did wasn't building a business, or making money, or any of the things grown-ups usually think matter. The most important thing was being a father, and even though I wasn't very good at it, it was still the best part of my life. Zora looked at David. Are you his son? Yes. So that makes you our... what? Nova tensed. David could feel her panic, her desperation to protect them from information they weren't ready for. But before he could answer, Luna said, I think he's our dad. Zora and I talked about it. We figured it out. The world stopped. Nova's face went white. Luna, where did you? We're not stupid, Mama, Zora said quietly. We look like him. And you always get sad when we ask about our father. And that lady at school said we have Mr. Ashley's eyes. So we figured it out. David couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just stared at these 2 brilliant little girls who'd solved the mystery on their own. Are you mad at us? Luna asked Nova. No, baby, I'm not mad. Nova's voice shook. I was going to tell you when you were older, when you could understand better. We understand now, Zora said. He left before we were born. You raised us alone. Now he's back, but we don't know him yet. The accuracy was devastating. James spoke softly. Can I tell you girls one more secret? They nodded again. I wish I'd known about you sooner. I wish I'd had time to take you to the park and read you stories and be a proper grandfather. But I'm glad I got to meet you now, even if it's just for a few minutes. You're exactly as wonderful as I imagined. Luna walked right up to the wheelchair. You can hug us if you want. Hugs make sick people feel better sometimes. She climbed carefully onto James's lap. Zora followed, one girl on each side. James wrapped his thin arms around them, his face crumpling with emotion. David turned away, tears streaming down his face. Nova was crying too, trying to hide it. They stayed like that for several minutes. Then the nurse gently reminded James he needed to rest. The girls climbed down. Luna kissed James's cheek. I hope you feel better, even though you're dying. Thank you, sweetheart. Zora lingered, looking at her grandfather seriously. If you're our grandpa and he's our dad, does that mean we have a family now? The question destroyed every person standing there. James looked at David. That's up to your father. Zora turned to David. We don't need you. Mama takes good care of us. But if you want to be our dad for real, you have to actually do it, not just say it. David knelt down to her level. You're absolutely right. Mama says we're moving to Seattle, Luna added. Is that far? Very far. Oh. Luna looked sad. So I guess you won't be our dad then, because dads are supposed to be close by. Nova gently pulled the girls back. We need to go. Say goodbye to Mr. Ashley and his father. Bye, they chorused. Nova led them away. At the edge of the park, she looked back once, met David's eyes. He saw everything there, pain, resignation, the end of hope. Then they were gone. David stood beside his father's wheelchair, both of them watching the family that could have been disappear. They're remarkable, James whispered. I know. Don't let them go. I don't know if I have a choice. You always have a choice. The question is whether you're brave enough to make it. The nurse wheeled James back to the van. David stood alone in the empty park, his phone buzzing with messages about wedding planning and merger documents and the life he was supposed to be building. That night, he couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., he drove to Nova's house. Her car wasn't there, probably working late or dealing with packing for the move. He sat on her porch steps like he had the night they broke up 7 years ago. Back then, he'd been running towards something he thought mattered. Now he was running from everything that actually did. His phone rang. Sable. "Where are you?" she asked. "You didn't come home?" I needed to think. About what? David, the wedding is in 3 weeks. The invitations are sent. The venue is booked. My dress is being altered. What is there to think about? Everything, he wanted to say. I'm thinking about everything. My father met the girls today, he said instead. Zora and Luna. They figured out I'm their father on their own. Sable was quiet. Then, how did that go? They're amazing, smart and kind and completely sure of who they are. And they're leaving, moving across the country with Nova in 2 weeks. David, I don't know what to do, Sable. I don't know how to walk away from them. But I don't know how to walk away from you either. And I'm tired of disappointing everyone. Then don't disappoint yourself, Sable said softly. That's worse than disappointing anyone else. What does that mean? It means I know what you're going to choose. I've known for weeks. Maybe I've always known. Sable, it's okay. I'm not angry. I'm sad, but I'm not angry. You can't force love, David. Believe me, I tried. He heard the pain in her voice and hated himself for causing it. I'm sorry, he said. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change anything. A pause. There's a company gala tomorrow night. The merger announcement. My father's been planning it for months. 300 guests. If you're going to break this engagement, please don't do it there. Give me that much dignity. I won't. Thank you. Her voice broke. I really did love you. I want you to know that. I know, and I'm sorry I couldn't love you the same way. She hung up. David sat on Nova's dark porch, knowing what he had to do, and terrified to actually do it. His father's words echoed, don't let them go. But to keep them, he'd have to lose everything else. The sun rose. Nova's car pulled into the driveway. She saw him on the porch, sighed, got out. You can't keep showing up here, she said tiredly. The girls are starting to ask questions. They already know I'm their father, they told me. I know, they told me too, on the drive home. They're too smart for their own good. Nova sat beside him on the steps. What do you want, David? To be their father, for real, not from a distance or through child support payments. Actually be there. We're leaving in 2 weeks. Then I'll come to Seattle. Nova turned to look at him. What about your company? Your wedding? Your whole life here? I don't know. I'm figuring it out. That's not good enough. You can't just show up and expect us to rearrange everything because you suddenly decided to care. I've always cared. No, you haven't. You felt guilty, that's different. Caring means making sacrifices, showing up even when it's hard, putting them first even when it costs you something. I'm trying to do that. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're a man with 1 foot in 2 different lives, refusing to commit to either. And my daughters deserve better than a part-time father who shows up when it's convenient. She was right. About all of it. Tell me what to do, David said. Tell me what it would take for you to trust me with them. Nova stood, arms crossed. I can't tell you that. You have to figure it out yourself. But I'll say this. If you want to be in their lives, you need to make a real choice. Not a maybe, not a someday. A choice that proves they matter more than your comfort or your career or your fear of losing everything. And if I make that choice, then we'll talk, but not before. I'm not holding my breath waiting for you to grow a spine, David. I did that 7 years ago, and it nearly destroyed me." She went inside, closing the door gently but firmly. David sat on the porch as the morning light grew stronger, knowing exactly what he had to do. The question was whether he'd actually have the courage to do it. Chapter 10. The company gala was everything David expected. Crystal chandeliers, designer gowns, champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. 300 guests filled the ballroom, all of them there to celebrate the Moreno-Ashley merger and witness the official announcement. David stood near the bar, watching Sable work the room. She looked breathtaking in a silver gown, her smile perfect, her composure absolute. No one looking at her would guess her world was about to implode. Robert Moreno found him clasping his shoulder. "Big night, David. Ready for the announcement?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. The board is excited about the expansion plans. With this merger finalized, we're looking at tripling our market share within 2 years." David nodded, only half listening. His mind was elsewhere, running through what he was about to do and all the ways it could go catastrophically wrong. His phone buzzed. A text from Nova. "The girls made you something. Luna wanted me to send it." An image loaded, a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, 2 small ones labeled Zora and Luna, and 1 tall one labeled Dad in Luna's messy handwriting. They were all holding hands under a rainbow. David's vision blurred. Another text. "They're hoping you'll come say goodbye before we leave, but I understand if you're too busy with your merger and your wedding. We're used to managing without you." The words cut deep, because they were true. A server announced dinner. Guests moved toward assigned tables. David found his seat next to Sable at the head table, alongside her parents and brother. The meal passed in a blur of small talk and business discussions. David barely tasted the expensive food, barely heard the conversations around him. He was too busy watching his future unspool, the announcements that would come, the commitments that would be made, the life that would lock into place if he didn't stop it. Finally, Robert stood, clinked his glass for attention. The room quieted. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," Robert began, his voice carrying easily across the ballroom. "We're here to celebrate not just a merger, but a union of 2 families, 2 legacies, 2 visions for the future." Applause. David felt Sable's hand find his under the table, her fingers cold and trembling. Robert continued, detailing the merger's financial benefits, the strategic advantages, the jobs it would create. He talked about legacy and family and the importance of honoring commitments. Then he turned to David. "And now I'd like to invite David Ashley to say a few words about what this merger means to him." Everyone looked at David expectantly. Sable squeezed his hand once, then let go. A warning or a goodbye, he wasn't sure. David stood, walked to the podium, looked out at 300 faces, business partners, investors, colleagues, friends, all of them waiting to hear him celebrate the future they'd all worked toward. His father's voice echoed in his memory, "Don't let them go." Zora's serious face. "If you want to be our dad for real, you have to actually do it, not just say it." Luna's drawing of a family that didn't exist yet, but could if he was brave enough. David gripped the podium, took a breath. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. His voice shook slightly. 3 years ago, when my company was drowning, Robert Moreno threw me a lifeline. He saved everything I'd built, asked for very little in return, and trusted me when most people wouldn't. Nods of agreement from the crowd. That trust, that partnership, it meant everything. Still does. David paused. "But I need to tell you all something, about who I am and the mistakes I've made." Confusion rippled through the room. Sable went pale. 7 years ago, I was in love with a woman named Nova Winter. When I got a promotion that required relocating, I left her, told her she wasn't part of my future. It was the most selfish thing I've ever done. Whispers started. David pushed on. What I didn't know was that she was pregnant, with twin daughters, girls I never knew existed until 2 weeks ago. Gasps. More whispers. Robert half rose from his seat, face reddening. Their names are Zora and Luna. They're 6 years old, smart and kind and perfect, and they figured out on their own that I'm their father, because I have their eyes, apparently. Because they're too intelligent to be fooled by adults pretending things aren't what they are. Sable was crying now, silently, her mascara running. My father met them last week. He's dying, has maybe days left, and meeting his granddaughters was the happiest I've seen him in years, because they're what actually matters, not business deals or merger announcements or any of this. David's voice broke. He looked directly at Robert. You saved my company. You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful for that. But the price you asked, marriage to your daughter, I can't pay it. Because Sable deserves someone who loves her completely, not someone who's pretending while his heart is somewhere else. David, don't! Robert's voice was thunder. I'm in love with Nova Winter. I have been for 7 years, and she's leaving, taking my daughters to Seattle in 10 days, because I've been too much of a coward to choose them, to sacrifice this comfortable life for something real. The room was dead silent now. David turned to Sable. I'm so sorry. You are one of the best people I've ever known. You deserve a love story that's all about you, not one where you're competing with ghosts. And I can't give you that. Sable stood, dignity somehow intact despite her tears. You're really doing this? Here? Now? I promised you I wouldn't do it at this event. I'm breaking that promise. I'm breaking all of them because I finally realized, 7 years too late, that the only promise worth keeping is the one I make to myself. To be honest, to choose what's real over what's comfortable. Isabella stood, furious. You are destroying both our families. I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't marry your daughter while teaching my daughters that love means settling for less than you deserve. Ricardo was on his feet now too. You understand what this means. The merger is dead. Every partnership, every investment gone. Your company won't survive the week. I know. Then you're a fool. Probably. But I'd rather be a fool who tried than a coward who didn't. David set down the microphone. The room erupted in chaos, shouting, accusations, the scrape of chairs as people stood. Security moved toward him. David didn't resist as they grabbed his arms, began escorting him toward the exit. He looked back once, saw Sable standing alone at the head table, surrounded by her family, watching him leave. For a moment, their eyes met. I really am sorry, he mouthed. She nodded once, then turned away. David was pulled through the ballroom, past shocked guests and flashing phone cameras. Someone was already live-streaming this. By tomorrow, his professional reputation would be destroyed. He didn't care. Outside, in the cool night air, security released him. You need to leave the property, now. David walked to his car, hands shaking, adrenaline crashing through his system. He'd done it. Actually done it. Thrown away everything he'd spent years building for a chance at something he might never get. His phone was blowing up. Texts, calls, notifications. He ignored all of it. Drove to Nova's house. Her lights were on. He could see movement through the windows. Packing boxes, probably. Getting ready for the move. David sat in his car for a long moment, then got out, walked to her door, knocked. Nova answered in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, hair in a messy bun, tape dispenser in one hand. She stared at him. You're supposed to be at your gala, she said. I was. I left. Why? Because I chose you. I chose Zora and Luna. I chose being honest over being comfortable. Nova's expression didn't change. What does that mean, David? It means I just told 300 people that I'm in love with you, that I can't marry Sable because you're the only one who matters. It means I probably destroyed my company and my reputation and every professional relationship I have. You did what? I chose you. I finally, actually chose you. Nova stepped back, letting him see inside her house. Boxes everywhere, half-packed. The girls' artwork on the walls, their backpacks by the door. We're still leaving, she said quietly. The words hit him like a punch. What? We're still moving to Seattle. I accepted the job. The girls are enrolled in their new school. I'm not changing my entire life because you had a dramatic moment at a party. Nova, I just gave up everything. No, you gave up what you should have given up 7 years ago. You don't get a medal for finally doing the right thing. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. Do you know what it took to build this life, to raise twins alone while starting a business, to be strong enough for them when all I wanted to do was fall apart? I know. You don't know. You have no idea. And now you show up, having destroyed your own life, expecting me to fix it, to tell you it's all okay and welcome you back with open arms. That's not... I don't trust you, David. I don't trust that this isn't just guilt or panic or another impulsive decision you'll regret later, because that's what you do. You make big, dramatic choices, and then you leave when they get hard. I'm not leaving this time. Prove it. Nova crossed her arms. Prove that this isn't about you feeling noble or trying to ease your conscience. Prove that you actually want to be a father, not just play one when it's convenient. How? Tell me how, and I'll do it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, the girls are asleep upstairs. They made you that drawing because Luna thought you might want to remember what we look like when we're gone. She doesn't expect you to choose us. None of us do. I'm choosing you right now. Words are cheap, David. You're standing on my porch at midnight, jobless and broken, because you finally hit rock bottom. That's not the same as choosing us. That's just having nowhere else to go. The accusation stung because part of it was true. He had waited until everything else fell apart. You're right, David admitted. I should have done this years ago, or weeks ago, or any time before tonight. But I'm doing it now. And yeah, maybe it's too late. Maybe I've lost you forever. But I needed you to know, even if you never forgive me, even if you move to Seattle and I never see you again, I finally chose right. A door opened upstairs, small footsteps on the stairs. Luna appeared, rubbing her eyes, wearing pajamas with stars on them. Mama, who are you talking to? She saw David through the screen door. Her eyes went wide. Mr. Ashley, did you come to say goodbye? David knelt down to her level. Not goodbye, Luna. I came to tell you something. What? That I'm your dad. And I've been a terrible father so far. I wasn't there when you were born, wasn't there when you took your first steps or said your first words. But if you and your sister and your mama will let me, I want to try to do better. Zora appeared next to Luna, also in pajamas. Better how? By showing up, being there. Even when it's hard or inconvenient, even when I mess up, which I probably will a lot, but actually trying. Are you moving to Seattle with us? Zora asked. David looked at Nova. If you'll let me. Yes. What about your company? Nova asked. Your life here? I don't have a company anymore. After tonight, I probably won't have much of anything. But I'd rather start over with you than keep building something without you. Luna looked at her sister. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Luna said, Can he come upstairs? We want to show him our room before we have to pack it. Nova's jaw tightened. Girls, it's late. Please, Mama. Zora's voice was soft. Just for a little bit. Nova looked at David for a long moment. He could see the war in her eyes, the desire to protect herself and her daughters versus the tiniest possibility that maybe this time he meant what he said. Finally, she stepped aside. 15 minutes, then you leave. David stepped into the house. The girls grabbed his hands, one on each side, pulled him toward the stairs. You have to see the telescope Luna got for her birthday, Zora said. And the art supplies, Luna added. Mama says we can bring them all to Seattle. They showed him their room. Twin beds with matching quilts, stuffed animals everywhere, drawings taped to the walls. They showed him Luna's telescope and Zora's collection of rocks. They told him about their favorite books and their friends at school and how they were nervous about moving but also excited. David sat on the floor between their beds, listening to them chatter, and felt something crack open in his chest. This is what he'd missed. This ordinariness, this sweetness, this simple joy of children sharing their world. When 15 minutes passed, Nova appeared in the doorway. "Time's up." "But Mama," Luna started. "Bed, both of you. It's a school night." Reluctantly, the girls climbed into their beds. David started to leave. "Wait," Zora said. "Will we see you again? Before we move?" David looked at Nova. She gave the smallest nod. "If your mama says it's okay, I'd like to see you again, as much as she'll allow." "Every day?" Luna asked hopefully. "Let's start with tomorrow," Nova said. "If you're serious about this, you can help us pack. 3 p.m. Don't be late." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. But it was a chance. "I'll be here," David promised. He left them there, 2 little girls tucked into their beds, their mother watching him with guarded eyes. Outside, sitting in his car, David checked his phone. 63 missed calls, hundreds of texts and emails, all of them probably telling him what a disaster he'd created. He deleted them without reading. Then he called the one number that mattered. His father's hospice nurse answered. "Mr. Ashley, your father asked me to tell you something he said. "I'm proud of you, son." David's throat closed. "Is he awake? Can I talk to him?" "He's sleeping now, but he was watching the live stream of your gala. He saw what you did, and he smiled, Mr. Ashley. First time I've seen him smile in weeks." David ended the call, sat in the darkness of Nova's street, and let himself cry. For everything he'd lost, everything he'd found, everything he still might lose. But for the first time in 7 years, the tears felt clean, like washing away old lies to make room for difficult truths. He'd chosen love, finally, completely, with no safety net and no guarantee of success. Now he just had to prove he could actually follow through.